Ladies and gentlemen, our final fireside chat for the day features a top local investor. Mr. Ashok Pathirage, the chairman of SoftLogic Holdings PLC, is in conversation with Mr. Shamindra Kulamanage, the editor-in-chief of the Echelon magazine.
Hello and welcome to this session of the Sri Lanka Investment Forum. Joining us today is one of Sri Lanka's most entrepreneurial business persons. He is Mr. Ashok Pathirage. He is chairman and managing director of a group of companies called the SoftLogic Holdings Group. Ashok is a self-made entrepreneur. He started the business almost 30 years ago, I think, Ashok.
So we are reaching 30 years this year.
This year.
Actually, this June, I think we are almost, there.
That's a momentous thing for sure, and a long journey, but a very interesting one, because the group has it started in IT, in retail, in technology, but it's now in healthcare. Hotels, financial services, retail is very big, from department stores to supermarkets now. It's a massive group. I think you're employing something like 11,000 people in Sri Lanka. That's huge by Sri Lankan
direct, and I'm sure there are many indirect employment as well.
So thank you for joining us. I'm looking
Pleasure, Shamindra. Thank you for having me.
Let's start here, Ashok. You worked for a conglomerate before you John Keels, before you started SoftLogic, and then it became SoftLogic Holdings after it was listed publicly. Tell us a bit about how this journey has been, particularly since you started diversifying. That may have started about 10 or 15 years ago when you got into hospitals, I think.
No, I think, as you said, we are almost 30 years. So I was at John Keels, I joined them at 18 years. And I worked there for almost 9 years.
Right.
And so basically we started this company with our provident fund money, because John Keels had a private provident fund. I think they still do, still does. So I think our initial capital was $10,000 with about 8 people. We started as a software development company. And, so since then, as you rightly said, we are going into, IT system integration, development to integration. Then we have taken agencies for many world-renowned, IT brands like Dell, Texas Instruments. I don't know if you can even remember Texas Instruments. And then we moved into, consumer electronics with the purchase of National Panasonic. At that time, it was a fairly large company. And so I think from then we moved to healthcare. So likewise. So when you look at it, so then we were already in retail, IT and healthcare before we were listed. So with the listing, that we acquired an insurance company that's today called SoftLogic Life. At that time it was a different name, so we rebranded it. So I think, if you talk about today, we are about almost $500 million revenue company. From a value perspective, if you take the respective clusters and the companies, and we have 7 listed companies in Sri Lanka. And if you really value the company, not by going by the market values, which you see in the stock market, but the global, valuations, right? Where we work with lots of investors, so we know what those valuations could be. We probably could be close to, our valuations could be close to $750 to $800 million US. So with 11,000 employees, as you said, and our core focus areas today are healthcare, where we are the number 1 in Sri Lanka. Then we are into retail, which is one area that we think that our growth is going to come. So which is already about, close to 50 billion in terms of turnover, and we think that will double within the next 2 years. So those are the plans we have with the entry of supermarkets and things. And also we are looking out at this moment, because if you take the healthcare, which is a listed holding company, and we have a partnership with TPG, which is a $1 billion private equity company globally. Then we are into insurance. SoftLogic Life is number 3 today. right, from a small beginning, right, within 11 years that we have brought from nowhere to number 3 life insurance company. So there again that we have foreign partner Leapfrog, which is $1 billion private equity firm. So those two, then we also into financial services, SoftLogic Finance. So I think, then we are into stockbroking. So these are in the cluster of financial services. Then the retail side of it. So retail, right, we are into fashion, we are on the department store, probably the best, and I think it's known in Asia as one of the top most department stores. Then we also carry lots of international brands, like almost 100 brands. I think we must be dominating about 95% of the brands are old brands are with us. Then we are building Odell Mall, which is a $100 million investment. So I think retail is one area that we are looking at raising more money and building a larger company where I told you that it could become 3 times bigger in terms of turnover in 3 years' time. So which we are looking at almost 150 billion to come only from retail. So I think based on our business plans, within the next 3 years, we would probably be $1 billion revenue company. So those are the plans what we have. But we also know there are challenges, right now. We could have achieved these 1 or 2 years before, had not that we had, East attacks and, bomb attack and followed by COVID. And COVID today is very much unpredictable. Still, we don't see an end to it. But hopefully, with the vaccination, we can see some of the countries like US and, UK coming back to normal. But UK is still, I saw today article, right, they're worried about the Indian variant. But I think these hiccups will be there in terms of COVID, but I have a strong feeling, right, by year end, I think that we will find a way globally, right? There will be big improvement, especially because of the vaccination. So I think today the biggest challenge is that most of the countries are not getting enough vaccines. I think that hopefully, right, the production will be great, and so we will overcome this gradually. But that doesn't mean to say that it's going to go away overnight. We will have to, as businesses, as people, as countries, as regions, we have to find a way to live with it. I think that's what I feel. I think we are already getting used to it because if you take the first wave, I think the way that, we locked the country, curfew, the economy was completely zero at that time because nobody knew how to react, right? But today, if you look at the second, lockdown, right? You see, still the business, the economy is functioning. Yes, some of the sectors have got affected, like the retail, mainly because the shops are closed. But if you take the exports are happening, and even if you look at our exports, I think we have done tremendously well. We have a growth in exports. I think that's a fantastic story for the country and how resilient our people and our corporates have been. So I think that's a great point that you can take. And even on this retail side, we have done pretty well apart from, I would say, the fashion and the restaurants. Because we are in both, right? We are probably the number 1 fashion retail in the country. And then we are also into a lot of restaurant business like Burger King. We carry lots of global franchises. So those have got impacted, right? But the fact that I want to tell you is, there's nothing that too much we can do, right? Because this is a global issue, right? It's not only for Sri Lanka. But I think, as a country, I think that, the government has done well to curtail and limit the damage. And also that, we must give credit to the government led by His Excellency, President. They also understand it's important that the economy has to go on, right? So I think that is happening currently. And hopefully, right, that we can get things under control.
Let me slightly roll back and ask you about SoftLogic's growth story over the last, it's accelerated in the last 15 years or so, I think, 15 to 20 years. Since when you started getting to hospitals and stuff like that, that's when I think the big growth came.
That's right. Yeah.
You have grown both organically and by acquisition. And it looks like, by the looks of it, that you've grown at a greater rate than most companies have been able to grow in this country. You just emerged from zero in 30 years to where you are. What do you attribute to this success? I mean, clearly there's big element of leadership and vision here. But I mean, how did you pull it off? What about Sri Lanka made that growth possible, you think?
Well, I think it's a lot of hard work, right? And also I think it's not only me, obviously that I may have given the leadership, but also that I have got, lots of support from my people, because if you look at we are very much in services business, right? We are not really into manufacturing. Although now we are looking a little bit because, with the import restrictions and the duties and all that, we can see some of the like home appliances and things. We are really looking in to see how we can manufacture here. I think that's a good thing to do. I think because government also pushing towards more, production base locally. And we are already having some furniture factories. So, but I think it's all about, Samindra, if you ask, it's all about people to me, right? I run so many, as you said, so many different segments, but as also I told you, our focus segments are healthcare, financial services, and retail. So those three segments are pretty big, and there's so much of opportunity still for us to, grow within that, right? So obviously, right, I was ambitious, one thing, and I saw there's so much of opportunity in Sri Lanka, right, untapped, and also I felt, right, people could have, I saw that and I took the advantage of it. Of course, any business there's risk. Even today, there's a risk element, but that's why that you must try and reduce risk as much as possible. That's why we have risk committees and various aspects in every part of the business. So I think I must attribute that to, and also mind you, right, I started the company when we had a war, right? It was much, much worse than, in today's context, right? That war went on almost about 15, 20 years from the time that I started the business. So I think we always felt that, once the war was over, my God, the opportunity is unlimited, right? So that is true. But unfortunately, I think, this East attack, and COVID would have pulled us back by about 3 years because, it shows very clearly in the GDP figures. Our per capita is today, it has come down from 4,000 to about 3,700, I would say, right? So hopefully, I think, but I'm very optimistic, because there's so much of opportunity. I think there is good leadership, right? I hope, right, there can be more and more private sector minds can come and help the government, and government also will make use of them. So I think, if you look at, if you ask, since you asked about the SoftLogic story, I told you, and if you ask me what I feel about the Sri Lankan story, so I feel that, we can double our GDP within the next 7 years. It's not a big deal. If we grow at 7%, 6 to 7%, we are economy, we should be growing at 7 to 8% if you want to get somewhere. So I think we can, right? As long as that we have, stability in terms of policies and things like that. And also, don't forget, we have invested lots of money in infrastructure. Like the government has, continuously investing in the road, ports, and even the airport now, the second phase is going, which is a very important thing for the country, because without having a proper airport, that you can't attract tourists. And so I think, and even the private sector, now if you take the leisure, look at the number of 5-star hotels which have come up in Colombo. But unfortunately, with all these investment, we got hammered with the Easter and the COVID. So I think it's unfortunate, but I am very optimistic, right, with time to come, because if you look at our tourism story, we can easily double what we used to earn, which from 5 billion, I'm sure that we can, get to 10 billion. So which is substantial amount of money. And the infrastructure is there. It's not that we need to build any new infrastructure, but with things like port city, development and all that, there will be more infrastructure, more hotels, more entertainment, more conference halls. I think those are needed, right? So I think those investments are coming in. The plans have been made. It is just that what we need is stability in terms of, we must get back to normal in terms of, we must get out of this COVID. I think not only us, the globally. And if we can get our act together, if we can execute our master plans, I think we can be very, very optimistic.
Tell me about how you plan to approach investing over the next few years. You identified 3 core areas, clusters where you're focused on retail, hospitality, and healthcare. You also hinted that you may look at backward integration, etc. If you have to.
Not really. I mean, that's not what backward. I think we want to do what we are best at.
Right.
I was just telling about the electronics because
Sure.
when there are restrictions, there's nothing else that we can go back. We have to. Because it's a very important business, so we can't move away from it. So we have to find ways and means of doing it.
If you expect the retail segment particularly to double or triple over the next few years, talk to us about what do you think will happen in the Sri Lankan economy that will bring you that sort of growth? Is it consumer spending in Sri Lanka? Is it tourism? How does that work out?
It's a mix of it, right? I think we have not invested purely looking at the domestic market, especially on the fashion side of it. Because we feel Sri Lanka can be, I always tell that, can be really developed as a, great shopping hub. So we have the malls now. Shangri-Las have come and invested. We are invested. We will open probably our mall by end of next year. There are other malls coming up, and Port City will offer, right? So I think we have to get our, tourism thing right, and we will, right? So if we can double our revenue, right? I think that shopping side alone, retail side, that we can, if we do it properly, we can, project this country as a complete tourism and shopping destination. Just look at, who's our neighbor, India. It's an emerging country. There's certain segment of that population is very rich. They are going to, Malaysia, they are going to Thailand, they are going to Dubai. I think we should attract them. So I think that's where that my belief is. It's not that we need to look at Chinese tourists to come. I'm sure they have many options. There are neighbors that they can go. But I think India is a natural destination, Sri Lanka. Even if you look at India alone, I think that we can, shopping alone, I feel, that we can develop that industry alone to be about $1 billion industry. So I think that is where we have invested a lot of money. You look at hospitals, we have done very well, right? That probably that company worth maybe $700 to $800 million, right? It's on autopilot, right? So we have our plans. It's very capital intensive. We just open candy, we're just doing well and it's making bottom line profit. So, but then, then the insurance and, financial services will go through their, business plans, and we are very confident about that. But where we think that our biggest jump can come is retail. Now, this is where that we have invested a hell of a lot of money. Where in terms of the brands, you can't just bring brands, the inventory to, build those, shops, into international standards. If you see, I'm sure that our stores are very much international class, sure. Right? So I think we have already built that. And, I think that, it is just that, we need, good year to kickstart, right, all these industries. And, obviously it will help if tourism comes, it will help a lot of people, a lot of stakeholders, hoteliers, restaurants. So many people who are dependent on that. I think, that is something very important for us. We at the moment, you are missing that 4 billion revenue. So that's why we are going through a little bit of difficulty. But if we can get back and, and I also believe, right, if this COVID moves away, people will start travel because they have not traveled for, a couple of years now, right? So I think everybody would want to get into a plane. That's what I believe, right? And all are waiting to get into a plane. So I think that's a very important area that we need to get it right, right?
Port City has the potential to transform Sri Lanka. This has been in the making for many years, and finally now the legal framework for it is fully in place. How do you view Port City as a Sri Lankan investor? Because it is something that is an opportunity that is largely also open to foreign investors. What are your thoughts as a large Sri Lankan investor?
We are very happy about it. These are the things that we have been always waiting for. I'm not talking about today's context. When we heard about maybe 7 to 8 years back about Port City with $1.8 billion investment, we were thrilled. We need this country to prosper, And if the country is not prospering, it's very difficult for groups like us to, grow, right? So then we have to look at, other options. So I think those are very important things, and, Touchwood now, it is being built. I mean, at least, now the program, I mean, some of the investments have been signed up, and the, bill was approved, I know, with lots of aho. But I think, I think everything is done. And I think this is one area that, I mean, we can attract lots of foreign investors. They must seriously look at Sri Lanka. And also, this is a great opportunity for the Sri Lankans. I mean, I think it's a myth that people are talking about this is only for Chinese investors and various kind of thing. I mean, that's not the case. In fact, we have signed a MOU to develop the hospital site with a foreign investor. I mean, that has not been announced yet. But, so, I mean, and we are looking at other options as well. And there are companies, Sri Lankan companies already have signed up, formed JVs and building, about it, and those are in newspaper. So I think this is a great opportunity not only for the foreign investors, I think for the local, companies and investors to, tie up with foreigners, or even on their own if they have the foreign funding. Because I think one restriction there is that you need part of the money has to come by way of dollars, right? So it could be either way of a loan or it could be equity, but you need to bring it from outside. So I think that's fair because we also need investment, right? So I think, so I think, as I said, we are looking at it and we are already there, as I said, in terms of the hospital. We want to build something really great, and most probably we'll have with a, great global name, so that we will take the healthcare business to a completely different level. So I think it's a great thing, and I think what we must look at is we must, without talking too much, if we can, work a little harder, build some, tie-ups, talk with the foreign investors and work with them and, bring more investments into not only Port City. I'm sure there are so many other places, even in Colombo, the government has earmarked for development. I think there's plenty of land and plans are available. I think what is needed right now is we need equity, we need money. So I think, we also need investors at the same, I think, so that's a great opportunity, I think, and that's a great opportunity for the investors whoever who's listening to me. This is a great place. I mean, we ourselves, we have built a company from nowhere to almost $1 billion company. And we have worked with lots of investors, and lots of companies have invested and exited from us. They have made money. So we have TPG, as I said, we have Leapfrog, we have No Fund, and we had investors like Actis who invested and exited with great money. But I think it's a great story from our side, as long as, you are genuine and you have a great plan, right? And if you like willing to work with people, investors, I think sky is the limit for, not only for the foreign investors, I think for the local companies. I think we need to take it in a very positive way.
Ashok Patirage, I think that's a great note to finish on. On behalf of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce and the organizers of the Sri Lanka Investment Forum, we thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.